Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? I want to talk today about firearms training. What kind and how much do you need? Took my second son over to the range the other day and saw some interesting things. Before we get to that, to remind you that all of these videos, regardless of what other ads you see, are brought to you by the Stonemont series. You will never be able to ask me a question about survival or preparedness that I haven't already answered in detail in these books. Now, I don't mind answering questions at all, but just to let, if you haven't read them, that's what these are about. They're about preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after the big collapse. And if you haven't read them and you're serious about preparedness, or even if you just want a good story, you'd probably like them a lot. And I always put the way to get them. I put a link down below in the information section along with a pinned comment on how to get those, both through Amazon and either paperback or Kindle, and or through me directly if you would like them autographed. I'm happy to do that. And I'm getting more and more. I've run out again, but I put in a new order, getting more and more orders directly to me because the people would like autographed copies, and I love to do that. You know, I love, just like I love answering comments in the comment section and getting to know the people. I really feel that I have I like to have a relationship with all of you, so any of you who would like those autographed copies, just go to the information down there. It tells you how to do it. Tell me what you'd like me to write in there. As long as it's not bad words or a lie, I'll be happy to do it for you. It also tells you how to get to our Patreon page down there, and if you're not with us over there, you should be. Okay, I have said in the past, many of you have heard, hopefully, I don't know how many on YouTube here, because I talk about most of the gun stuff over on Patreon, but this is such a general. I wanted to get this out to the widest audience, not just preaching to the choir and the more experienced people, but to everybody. You've heard me say that you don't need to go to class after class after class at Thunder Ranch to be effective. And now this has nothing to do with Thunder Ranch. It's just that's probably the most famous gun school there is right now. There's others. There's plenty of them around. I mean, I teach guns, but I don't do it publicly. But I'm just using them as an example. You know, the whole gun world, we have a lot of gun enthusiasts, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have a lot of gun hobbyists, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the idea that you have to go to multiple $1,000 classes in order to be effective in a standard self-defense situation is simply wrong. Most people don't, and they can be very effective. As a matter of fact, in just a couple of classes, I can get somebody to be as effective as they're ever going to need to be. Again, it means it's nothing about, you can go to those things, you can go to those schools, you can learn a lot of cool stuff, most of which you'll never use. And again, it's not a slam on any of those schools. Because anything that somebody wants to do, they should be able to do it. Not a slam on those schools. I want to make that clear. So don't come down. I say that because there's always this, a couple of chuckleheads that are going to come in and say, well, I went to such and such and I learned some really cool stuff. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I learned some really cool stuff. The government taught me some really cool stuff. You know how much of that I ever needed? Okay, so if it's what somebody wants to do, if they're interested in it, that's fine. But like I say, there's more there that you can learn than you'll probably ever need. However, there is some training that most people overlook, I think, and that is extremely important. Here, and it's the basic stuff, and I want to talk about this. I took my second son over to the range several days ago. I'll probably put our picture up here as the thumbnail, so if you saw the thumbnail, you already saw us. It was the first chance we've had to go over there with his new rifle. Had a ball, had a really good time. And at 12 years old, he was the best gun handler there. Now, this is a pretty big range. I'm not going to name the range. I won't fault them entirely. But it's a very busy place. And when we went in there, of course, all of my kids have been able to recite the rules of gun safety since they were 5, but we went over there, and I haven't drilled him on it a lot. I just told him the basics, and he understands. And so we went over there, and like I say, I watched what was going on. I was real careful. After I saw a couple of things on the line itself that really surprised me. I mean, there was a guy in there. He had just apparently just gotten his guns. He had a Henry lever action, and he had a Kel-Tec, one of those folding guns, rifles, carbines, and he had them in the original shipping boxes. He didn't even have, so he probably just got them, brought them over there. This guy was flagging everybody in the world. I mean, I almost said something to him. And had it happened a little more, I would have. Dog's going after something. So we shot, and then afterwards we went out and sat in the outside, and I had some coffee, and we ate some snacks and things while we were watching everybody on the firing line. And I tell you, it's just amazing. I can't explain everything that I saw, but there was this one group of young men, and by that I mean young men in their 20s, early 20s probably. Now, they had all the gear that they thought that they needed. They had their rifles, and they had their grunt-style black T-shirts. And boy, they were representing. They were. One of them obviously was the one who had kind of taken it upon himself to teach his other 2 friends. And one of the guys was having, and they would take turns on the one lane. One of the guys was having some trouble. Couldn't get, I don't know what his issue was. It looked like he had probably had a failure to feed. And he was trying to mess with it, and he kept looking around for his friend, and his friend was back there on his phone, back like this. And his other friend was back there. Okay, these are guys on a firing line on their phones. And this one guy was kind of doing a bebop. He was kind of, and this guy could not, he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to leave the gun. He kept trying to get his friend's attention, the expert of the group. And finally, when the guy looked up from his phone and he saw that his friend needed some help, he went up there, and then they looked at it for a while. They looked back and forth, and he fiddled with it, and he did all sorts of stuff, and they conversed, and they asked each other what they thought. Probably, I couldn't hear him, but you could tell, what do you think is wrong? I don't know. What do you think is wrong? I don't know. What do you think is wrong? These guys, in the process of that, they were also, the muzzle of that rifle was going all over the place. The people who say that a lot of people shouldn't have guns, while I argue with them constitutionally, damn, they're right. I mean, how many of these morons avoid killing themselves or others astounds me. The idea that these people would not deal with firearms with any more concern or safety than they do apparently with anything else in their life just astounds me. Now, those of us who know, and what they need is somebody who actually will teach them. Now, obviously, these guys didn't go to Thunder Ranch, right? Okay, but we're talking about basic stuff here. We are not talking about advanced stuff. These are the kind of things that somebody should should be drilled on from the get-go. Now, those of us who had our training in a situation to where if that muzzle strayed a little bit, we got jumped on from every side we have, that ingrained it in us, right? Yeah. These people, they don't have that. There are too many. Now, I've said many times that that you don't need to go to some special shooting school. If you have a friend who is adept at firearms, and I would say police, military, and not all of them are adept. I mean, a lot of them just did it to qualify, and then they went off and did something else, right? If you have a friend who is knowledgeable about these things, go to them. Have them teach you to shoot. You don't have to go to a shooting school, but you have to find somebody who will hold you to account, who will explain to you how to safely and appropriately handle that weapon, effectively handle that weapon safely, and will hold you to that standard. And most people, when they get in, it's their first time getting guns, like all these were young men in their 20s. The one guy flagging everybody, the other three who were, okay, and I've never been so happy to get off a firing line in my life. You could tell nobody had taught them, nobody had trained them, and they don't have it in here. And many people, when they first are introduced to guns, it's unusual to them, right? It's foreign. They don't understand. It's cool. It's scary. It's all sorts of things, right? And so they start trying to manipulate this strange thing without being taught the basics. I was teaching a guy, and so they need somebody. They need somebody who will hold them and strictly hold them to account. Too often a friend won't. Now, I was teaching somebody basic gun handling, and he turned around, and I was talking to him, and he turned towards me to ask something. And as he did, and you all have seen this, as he did, he was looking at his gun, and he brought it around, and that muzzle came. It wouldn't, it was close. And as it came around, I slammed his hand, and I knew the gun was unloaded because I was in charge of the guns, and I had unloaded it, and there wasn't any ammo around. And I slammed his hand, and I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" And he said, "What?" I said, "You just pointed that gun at me." And do you know what he said? He didn't say, "Oh, God, I'm sorry." No, he said, "No, I didn't." We live in a funny world. I mean, there's too many, all you guys of my age, that when we were taught things, we had men jumping all over us when we screwed up, didn't we? And what did that do? It helped us to learn. And too many don't have that nowadays. They don't have it nowadays. So here is where I think there is a big lack in firearms training. And again, not everybody has to go nobody has to go to Thunder Ranch to get basic firearms training that will allow them to be effective in a basic self-defense situation. Thunder Ranch is a great school, I'm sure. I've never been there. I'm sure that it is. I know the reputation, right? But nobody has to go there. Those who want to, good for you. I'm sure you learn a lot of stuff. Like I say, a lot of stuff that you probably never need to know. But that's the nature of it. Those of us who teach martial arts, we teach people a lot of stuff that they'll never need to know. Because as you teach advanced stuff, it helps you further solidify the basics, right? And you're kind of working on a continuum there. But the thing that really needs to be stressed more are the basics, the basic safety protocols, basic gun handling. So for those of you who are training friends and things, make sure that you are, I don't mean you got to be an ass, but hold them to the standard. Make sure. And if they do something they shouldn't do, you have to stop them, and you have to hold them, and if they do it again, you got to increase that. You have to use whatever level of response is necessary to get them to stop dangerous behavior and to solidify the proper safe behavior when it comes to firearms. For those of you getting into it, make sure that you go to somebody. Just because you bought a gun doesn't mean that you can handle it. It means nothing. Okay? Just because you bought a car doesn't mean you're a race car driver. And until you can handle it, you're a danger to other people. So be responsible. Find someone who can teach you properly, and find someone who will hold you and won't let you get away with stuff just because you're their friend, because they're not helping you at all. They're not helping anybody else. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. That was my thing. I was shocked. I've never seen this before on a range. I don't know, and I won't mention the range's name. But I do hold them partially responsible, because they should have had somebody out there immediately on those boys. And I'll leave it at that. But the training that you need, make sure that your basic training is rock solid. Rock solid. And then from there on, you can do whatever you want. But if your basic training is not rock solid, you're a danger to yourself and others. So, and when you're handling deadly things like cars, guns, things like that, safety is everything. Okay. All right. You guys have a good day. Remember, it's brought to you by the Stonemont series. Order them down below. Come join us on the Patreon channel. Be safe with your firearms, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.